One night in the wild, a deer is running desperately as if being hunted by anything or someone close. Her baby called Sang Cancel is playing in the woods when he unexpectedly meets his mother come with multiple wounds on her body. She tells the baby to run and the two of them make their way up a slope with the mother deer pushing Sang, who lands securely on the other side. Unfortunately for her, a hand shrouded in darkness pulls her back and she departs, leaving the infant alone. Sang tears over the loss of his mother, but multiple wicked eyes appear surrounds him and he is forced to run. Years pass and the baby becomes a very swift deer, managing to escape even a tiger which tries to devour him but falls into a trap and is smacked by a tree trunk. Meanwhile, in another part of the woodland, a troop of animals take the possibility to swim in the lake near a magnificent waterfall. However, the fun is disturbed by a large elephant called Gaja, who declares that he is the new owner of the lake and tells everyone to leave. As the waterfall is the major source of water, the forest creatures inquire for help when they locate Sang. They tell him the whole scenario and beg for his help in driving Gaja away, since in return, the deer will have all the food and comfort at once. Sang accepts the mission and together with the group, he goes to talk to Gaja and orders the elephant to leave the lake in peace. However, this only makes Gaja mad and with his trunk, he sucks up all the water in the lake and launches a powerful blast at the animals. Using a leaf as a shield, Sang manages to block the attack, but the remainder of the squad become terrified of the elephant and leave him alone. Nevertheless, the small deer challenges Gaja to a showdown, and if he wins, the elephant must leave the water. However, if Sang is defeated, the whole jungle will belong to Gaja and the creatures will have to heed his every command. Before accepting the challenge, Sang is summoned by the herd, who warned the deer not to do this, as no animal in the forest has managed to defeat the elephant. Nevertheless, Sang strives to come up with a strategy when he observes a group of ants heading towards the anthill. The small deer then goes there and asks for the help of Semet, queen of the ants, who agrees to do this in order to giving the lake back to the animals. She then confronts Gaja, who at first laughs at the ant, but then accepts the difficulty and makes a tremendous jump towards the cloud. Then the elephant begins to descend swiftly as if it were a torpedo launched at full speed. Still, the ant queen is undeterred, and with the support of one of her warriors, she launches herself in the opposite direction. The two opponents are set to meet, but sight evaporates into thin air and the elephant smashes into the forest, generating a big explosion. Afterwards, Gaja argues that the ant didn't even touch him and celebrates his triumph. However, this was all part of Sang's plan, because before they collided, the queen entered the elephant's trunk and began to sting inside it. The elephant grows desperate and attempts to get rid of the ant, but ends up slamming into the rocks and crashes to the ground with no strength left to fight. With this victory, the animals can return to the lake and everyone sings and dances due to Sang's clever plan. After the celebration, the young deer goes for another walk in the wild when he is smacked on the head by his master, the squirrel Tupai. He warns his apprentice not to grow too smug, as there will always be a new threat hiding in the forest. Sang thanks him for the guidance but assures him that thanks to his training, he is able to solve all the problems in the forest. However, he still hasn't uncovered the mystery of what happened to his mother and only remembers the shadows that snatched her away that awful night. The small deer wants to know the whole truth, but his mother has gone into the mountains beyond the woodland. The deer doesn't know how to get there, but a crow called Gag emerges on the scene, claiming to know the route there. Tupai knows that the crow can't be trusted and advises Sang to stay in the wilderness, but the deer has already made up his mind and starts acquiring items for the voyage. Seeing that Sang is determined, the squirrel takes the deer's supplies and challenges him to a duel to test if he's ready. The small deer accepts, but instead of a quarrel, the two begin a dance-off. The master believes his victory is certain, but in a moment of distraction, Sang takes back his supplies. With everything ready, Gag reappears and claims that he will be waiting for Sang by the river. However, Tupai continues to mistrust the raven's genuine intents, and using his stick, he pins the bird against the branch of a tree and threatens him if he betrays his apprentice. But Sang asks his master to leave Gag alone, so Tupai lets the bird fly and wishes the little deer good luck. Finally, Sang begins his trek towards the mountain, but after hours of walking, he is shocked by a gigantic snake called Aar. With a lunge, it tries to consume the deer alive, but Sang manages to evade it and runs away, only to meet up with the tiger, Harima. The two predators start bickering about who will get the prey, and Sang seizes the opportunity to flee. To his tragedy, the deer ends up trampling on a bone, garnering the attention of all and Harima. Sang then runs as quickly as he can, but ends up getting cornered on a rock and begs for mercy, explaining that he is on a journey to save his mother. Neither of them takes him at his word and they gently advance towards him. Fortunately, the small deer sees another trap set up, and when he triggers the mechanism, a big tree trunk is hurled, hitting the Bengal tiger squarely. Without her competition, Aller sets off to devour the deer alone. But Sang sees a bamboo forest and jumps between its trunks. The snake doesn't give up and makes multiple attacks on the deer. But just as it was ready to reach it, Ola finds that it has become stuck between the bamboos. Once again, the deer has used its wits to escape danger and continues on its trip till it meets Gajik again. He warns him that they are close to the mountains, but they have to cross the lake ahead, protected by the alligators and their leader, the crocodile Raja. Despite the danger, Sang reveals himself to the gang, and when he sees the deer, the crocodile doesn't think twice and lunges at him. However, with a stroke of luck, Sang throws a branch into the crocodile's jaws, which can no longer closing its jaw, and is left perplexed. Sang then invents a narrative alleging that he needs to cross the lake and has brought a message from the crocodile king Sulian. He goes on to claim that the monarch has invited all the alligators to a ceremony in the jungle, which just makes Rajat even happier. He then commands the alligators to stand in the river to perform as a bridge for the deer, but tells him because if this message is untrue he will regret it. Sang assures him that everything is genuine and finally crosses the river, meeting Gag on the other side. He is startled that the deer has made it that far, but cautions him that in the mountains dwells one of the most dreaded beings in the jungle, Perkasa, the enormous eagle. Nevertheless, Sang continues to climb the mountain till at tremendous speed, the eagle appears in front of him. Seeing the small deer, Perkasa begins to mock him, and with just a flutter of his wings, he scatters animal bones, forming a barrier around Sang. The deer is not intimidated and states that he is seeking for a monster formed of shadows which erased his mother years ago. On hearing this, Perkasa quickly recognizes who he is talking about and assures him that the person responsible for eliminating his mother is pretty close by. Just then, a predator cloaked in darkness appears and shows itself to be Kumbong, a massive panther that eliminated Sang's mother in the past. Even in terror, the deer is overtaken with an uncontrolled anger and sets out to assault Kumbong. However, one of his henchmen arrests Sang, who soon becomes the butt of jokes among everyone, even Pikasa and his buddy Gag. However, to the crow's tragedy, the same panther strikes him by surprise and crushes him against the wall, eradicating the animal. Faced with this unexpected scene, Perkasa is overtaken with wrath and leaps at Kumbong, squeezing down on his neck with his keen claws. He asks why his friend has been abolished and notifies the panther to remember their agreement to govern the whole forest. However, the panther has other intentions, and with its paw, it smashes the gigantic eagle's fingers and throws it at the other panthers who starting to consume it. However, the eagle doesn't give up and advances against them, initiating a horrible struggle. Having a common adversary, Sang decides to aid Pasa and hits the panthers with his kicks. Kumbong also enters the struggle and attacks Pikasa, with the two of them fighting to pick who would govern the forest. At the same time, Sang is surrendered by one of the panthers and is about to be finished off when Tapai appears by surprise and saves his pupil by striking the animal with his staff. The squirrel master then uses his staff to generate a sandstorm and runs with Sang. Minutes later, they both hide in a safe area and Tapai bandages the deer's wounds. Shortly afterwards, an orangutan emerges on the scene, critically injured, and tells him that he has been victimized by Kumbong. Seeing the little deer, he remembers Sang's mother and informs him that she was a fantastic leader for the woodland animals. At that time, everyone lived in harmony until one day he saw Kumbong caught between numerous rocks. Desperate, he sought for aid, and at first, the deer refused because she knew he would assault the other animals in the woodland. However, when the island's volcano exploded, the deer took pity on him and helped him escape. Unfortunately, as soon as he was freed, Kumbong betrayed her, assaulting her with his sharp claws until he finally eliminated her in front of her own son. Sang cries as he learns about his mother's cruel fate, and in his last breath, the orangutan asks Sang to revenge him and bring peace to the forest. The next morning, the small deer and his master throw a flower funeral for the orangutan, and Sang is more willing than ever to confront Kumbong. Tapai, however, knows that the panthers are exceedingly powerful and will not be defeated by brute force alone. Sang then decides to gather all the animals in the forest to fight together. But before he can do anything, Kumbong and his panthers appear and find the rabbit's nest. Sang and Tapai run to help them while the rabbits do what they can to face the big predators. They arm themselves with spears and even a pistol that shoots seeds. But the panthers manage to dodge their strikes and fight back with scratches and bites. Little by little, the whole group is decimated and some try to escape through tunnels beneath the ground, but they are also seized. Finally, Kumbong uses his fingernails to produce a spark and throws it towards the tree, igniting a fire that engulfs the entire forest. Minutes later, later, Sang arrives on the scene, but it's too late and most of the bunnies are laying motionless on the ground. Despite this dreadful scenario, the small deer finds his companion, the rabbit Arnab, who narrowly managed to escape the destruction. After recounting what had happened, Arnab pleads for Sang's help in battling the panthers. Shortly afterwards, Tapai appears and states that he witnessed Kumbong and his crew go to the river to take over the alligators' territory. The small deer then hurries to go there as he can ask for Raja's help to combat a common enemy. However, when they get there, Sang and his friends see the alligators being humiliatingly trounced by Kumbong and his panthers, who attack and consume their prey. Raja challenges the leader of the panthers to a fight in the lake, and the winner will be the new owner of the territory. Confident in his ability, Kumbong accepts, but as he enters the water, the crocodile jumps on his back and bites his neck, taking him to the bottom of the lake. Raja is about to overcome his opponent underwater, but Kumbong uses his claws again and gouges out the crocodile's eyes. Thanks to this, the panther manages to break loose, but the crocodile strikes back with a blow off its tail, knocking Kumbong back to the surface. Raja then tries to take another bite out of the panther, but it stops his onslaught with its paws and throws him to the ground. Not satisfied, Kumbong jumps on top of the crocodile and with his keen nails scrapes Raja's back, who cries in anguish. Furious, he tries to land another hit, but the panther bites him on the neck and starts rubbing his belly. In a last-ditch effort, Raja uses his spinning blow and tries to take the fight back to the bottom of the lake, but shortly thereafter, the panther lifts him back to the surface and slams him against a rock. Raja tries to protect himself, but Kumbong makes a huge slash in his chest, and as he loses so much blood, the crocodile becomes weaker and weaker. This provokes the rage of the alligators, who try to attack Kumbong but are easily defeated by his gang. This looks to be the end of the alligators, but they realize that Raja is still alive and carrying their boss. They leave. Seeing Kumbang's scary strength, Arnab despairs, but Sang doesn't plan to give up and orders him and Tapai to summon all the animals to a conference. The couple obey and Sang decides to proceed to the surviving alligators to ask for their help. When he discovers them, he tries to cross the lake and talk to the leader, but one of the alligators gets terrified and attacks him. But suddenly, a figure comes in fast speed and captures the small deer, which disappears into the sky. Meanwhile, the animals congregate and wait for Sang, but there is no sign of him anyplace. The creatures begin to wonder whether he is truly going to help them till Sang appears from the skies alongside Picasa. The complete gang is scared at the sight of the great eagle, but Sang says that he has come to meet Kumbong and the panther gang alongside the wild creatures. Although the possibilities are minimal, the deer explains that this is the animal's home, therefore they must defend it at all costs. These words resound throughout the woodland and the animals begin to see a leader in Sang just as his mother was in the past. So, they all pledge to battle for the forest and the deer begin to put together a strategy of attack. Far away, Kumbong gets together with his panthers and informs them that tonight they will all enjoy a feast, devouring all the animals in the region. As soon as the moon rises in the sky, the pack sets went to find their victim, only to find the woodland appears vacant. After walking a little further, they locate Arnab near a campfire and holding a skewer for roasting carrots. The panthers start to approach the small bunny, but suddenly Sang appears sporting armor composed of golden logs. He then orders the attack should begin, and so a spring under the ground propels Arnab to safety and numerous rabbits appear for fight. Although little, they join forces to throw fruit and stones at the panthers. People flee to dodge the projectiles. However, on the other side, the monkeys do the same, and with Alor's support, they use the snake's stretchy body to toss stones at their enemies. With targets being hit on both sides, Sang provides the instruction for the animals to attack Hedon, tossing logs at the panthers. Finally, Perkasa utilizes his claws to carry a giant tree and drops it on Kumbong, who is crushed by it. Seeing this, the woodland creatures celebrate, believing that Kumbong has finally been eliminated. However, the leader of the panthers appears uninjured and instructs his soldiers to assault Sang and his friends with all their power. The small deer doesn't allow himself to be terrified and sets off with the animals into fight, where the fate of the forest will be decided. Despite their bravery, the rabbits are easily defeated by the panthers, but Picasa strikes back with a flying attack. Even so, the great eagle is captured by his opponents while in the top of the forest. Sang escapes from 2 additional panthers. However, the deer is faster and in a surprise attack, it jumps towards them and knocks them down with a strong kick. The war escalates, but Kumbong gets the upper hand, and if things continue like way, there won't be any more animals remaining in the woodland. When all appears lost, the ground begins to quake and then Gadja appears with his elephant companion. Although he has been an adversary of the woodland animals, Gadja offers to help them get their home back. With this reinforcement, Sang and his troops regain the upper hand, but the small deer receives a surprise attack and is thrown approaching Kumbong and the rest of the gang. Tapai sees his trainee in danger and tries to help him, but he is also stopped by the panthers and Sang finds himself alone confronting his end. However, Raja and his alligators who are preparing to exact their revenge on Kumbong coming to the rescue. Now Sang has the three guardians at his side, Raja of the water, Gadja of the earth, and Perkasa of the air. Thanks to this combination, the panthers think of withdrawing, but Kumbong won't accept defeat and orders them to assault once again. Even so, the panthers are no match for the combined powers of Sang and the guardians. And moreover, Queen Samet triggers the cannons to fire, launching green goo with ants, which when they hit the panthers, start stinging them non-stop. Finally, only one panther remains and Perkasa takes personal control of it, which was responsible for removing Gajik. In the same horrible way that his friend was eliminated, the great eagle slams the panther against the wall and crushes it, giving it no chance to defend itself. With his army annihilated, Kumbong decides to take matters into his own hands and goes into war alone. Thanks to his exceptional strength with agility, the panther defeats the animals one by one, but Sang stops him with another kick. Kumbong soon recovers and tries to hit back with his claws, but Perkasa saves the small deer and takes it to the skies. Even so, the panther makes a big leap and manages to reach the eagle, hurting Perkasa's leg with its sharp nails. Sang fights back and mustering all his strength in one punch. He hits Kumbong directly in the eye with his paw. As soon as the panther is hurled to the ground, Gadja steps on its paws and throws it with his trunk, followed by Pasa, who gives the panther several swift pecks. Finally, Raja grabs Kumbong with his sharp teeth and pushes the panther to the ground, leaving him seriously wounded. With no strength left to fight, Kumbong dashes away, only to find himself stuck on the verge of a tremendous waterfall. The small deer doesn't want to let him get aside and runs over, challenging him to one last fight. Even though he is feeble, Kumbong has enough strength to face Sang and without effort, he manages to pull him to the ground and is about to consume the deer. However, Sang begins to smack his paw against the ground, forcing a chunk of his armor to break off. He then throws the fractured piece enters Kumbang's eye, which is blinded and unable to fight. Then, Sang delivers the final stroke and pushes the panther with a double kick, knocking him off the waterfall and into a pile of spiky rocks. However, the jump also creates the deer to fall off the waterfall, but at the last second, he is saved by Tapai. She captures him in the air using a vine. Finally, the menace of the panthers is no more and all the animals can live in tranquility in the forest. As well as having avenged his mother and pals, Sang is seen by everyone as a leader and he promises to bring peace and harmony to the island for many, many years to come. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.